Hi everyone, welcome to Tech Down Over. Today we've got with us Curtis Judd, one of our favorite people out there, and our co-host, good friend Jeff Blanchard. He's down in the right. We got to change this screen. I don't like this 3 position. Well, we got to make it look the way it did before. It looks better, don't you think?
It looks too much like Brady Bunch.
It's too much like the Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch. Okay. Anyway, shall we start with the intro?
And then all look to
I just don't want to be Alice.
Had a little of the Hollywood Squares thing going.
That's right. That's right. Yes. And in square number right, Jeff in square number 1. What is the capital of Alaska?
I must admit, to start with you saying about the screenshots, Rick, there was somebody did a great YouTube had 4 just by himself, did it all in 6 shots. But he threw a balloon at himself, and it came and hit him on the other one, and it kept interacting with all the other one, and he did it really well. So he kept reaching over to himself and grabbing himself, and he did it so well out of about 6 shots. I thought it must have taken him months to do all that, to coordinate it all. So when he threw something, it hit him right at the right time. So
that's funny.
It was very, very challenging.
Yeah, there are some good ones. Well, Curtis, it's been a while. We've tried to get you on a couple of times, and either through you're busy, which is a good problem, or we had some weather issues. Right now, we've got major fires going on, so there's always something. We are actually, I think we were about 8 miles from where they had the major fires. It started recently, so we got lucky. They went the other way. Unfortunately, lucky for us, bad for the other people. It's been awful. One of our instructional designers, her house got evacuated, so hopefully she's okay. Her block was fine, but the block across from her destroyed, just totally destroyed. And these are in public, these are populated areas, not where we have brush. It jumped over all the brush into the which is rare. So one of those very bad moments for us out here. But Curtis, how have you been? Busy?
Busy, I think, is a good description. We have been doing a lot of work with lighting lately, a little bit with sound as well, of course, and I recently shot my first zombie commercial, which was a lot of fun.
Now, what is a zombie commercial?
Well, it's a commercial with zombies in it, of course, and I can't wait to share it as soon as the edit's done. So I think I might get involved a little bit in the sound design and post work on that one, so I'm excited to share that once we were ready.
Shall we do the interview in zombie?
No, no, definitely not.
So well, that's good. That's good. No, I'm always glad when I hear that you're busy and you're doing stuff, and you've been doing some great reviews. You always do great reviews, but you've been adding a lot of reviews recently. So how you find the time is amazing. I know you've got family, kids, everything. You keep busy.
I keep busy. For sure, just like you guys.
Yeah, we try. Yeah, it's never, I don't know. Sometimes we just go, what do we do next? We're tired. We're busy. End of year, we're tired. It's been a long way. We need to start over. But we're actually redoing the studio in here starting next week. So we're going to change it. As always, when we built it out incorrectly. So now we're going to redo it to make it functional so that we have everything in one corner for the controls, and everything else will be kind of in the middle where we can create a little bit more of a studio set. So we can change things depending on people are in here, out, and just make it look nicer, make it look more comfortable. Very good. That's always fun. And as we were talking pre-show, if my shot's a little bit different today, I have the Canon XF 405 in SDI, so I'm in 1080p mode. Well, the show's going out in that. And Curtis, you recommended this in your review, and we got it. This is the Aputure SE120D for daylight, and it's a wonderful lamp. This lamp, you see how we're lit right now, that lamp is lighting about half the studio at 10% output. It's pretty mind-boggling. It does a great job, and all we had to do was a little bit of tweak, and also the Canon XF 405 just came out. We only got it about a week ago. It is a 4K camcorder from Canon. We are not streaming in 4K right now, and we don't have on this particular machine 4K input, so we're doing 1080p, and the camera is really nice. It reminds me of the slightly older generation of Canon XH-A1s and some other ones that had a little bit more control, even though a lot of it's on screen now. I kind of miss buttons. I don't know how you guys feel, but I like buttons. I like a little more manual control rather than always having to go to the screen, but it's okay. We get used to it. Curtis, have you shot with any of the Canon camcorders?
The only one I've ever shot with is the XC10, I think it was called, which is not really a camcorder, more of a. I'm not sure how Canon really.
I think it's a photo. It's a camcorder camera.
It's weird. It's like, I think they build it kind of as, for those people that shoot primarily with a C100, that could be your backup cam,
right?
Your B cam,
right?
And it was actually not very good at stills either. I mean, the stills were fine that came out of it, but it was very much ergonomically a video camera. So it's kind of an interesting one. But I think there's always part of me that wants to work more with those types of cameras because they're ergonomically, I think they're a lot better for shooting video.
Right.
You know, they're not the hybrid camera where they're set up for photography, but they also do video. It's really, everything's focused on shooting video, and that makes it, I would think, ergonomically a lot easier to work with. You can see, let me see where my fingers are here. Over here. Yeah, this. That is the Blackmagic Ursa Mini Pro, which does, it's a cinema camera, but it has a lot more in common in terms of its controls with the traditional video cameras, and I find it really a dream to work with.
Yeah, you've done reviews on it. It sounded actually pretty good, and it's not that expensive considering. I think the Ursa, what is it, Maxi or whatever, the bigger one, is pretty expensive.
Well, this one's not cheap once you kit it out either. I mean, it doesn't. It's one of those where, it's $6,000 for the camera, but then. If you want the viewfinder, that's another $1,500. If you want the shoulder kit, that's another $500 or something like that. If you want the SSD recorder, that's another $400.
Now, where is Blackmagic out of?
They're in Sydney, I believe.
They're Australian?
Yeah, Jeff's way.
You know, I always thought they were British. I didn't realize they were Australian. Interesting.
Oh.
Jeff, you should have a lot of Blackmagic equipment.
Yes, I also need a lot of money too.
There is that.
Yes, if I work day to day with it, because they do great equipment, but it's in my day to day job, it's not filming, so it's not very economical. But I certainly would agree they seem to be one of the best ones. They're expensive for my sort of liking, but when you see what other things are on offer, it's quite economical compared to what the Canon option is. I would think so.
Yeah, that's true. Now, Curtis, you were talking about the XC10 from Canon. I have that one, and it's one of those kind of love-hate. It shoots okay, but you just don't have a ton of control, at least easily accessible control, where you're not constantly hitting the screen and trying to go. It's not bad. It's not bad. You do, if you put on that attachment at the end for like a viewfinder, it's good, but now you're constantly with the joystick, which really slows you down when you're trying to do anything. So those are my only little gripes about it. The quality's nice for video.
And I think that's really the case for those traditional video cam form factors, and all of the buttons and controls that they put on those is you can get what you need to go pretty quickly. You don't have to dive into menus.
Right.
You know, you've got a button here to do this. You've got a button there that does that. So there are really some nice things about that form factor that I like.
Yeah, same here. And now I went out and splurged. I spent a ton of money. It's tax time. So at this time we had to do more because we're going to get hit by taxes if I don't. But Dell, we never buy camera gear from Dell, only because Dell, why would Dell sell camera gear?
Oh, yeah.
They sell tons of camera gear on their website. And we went, And they offered us a very attractive interest rate. We actually bought an Exchange server because we use Microsoft Exchange for our email, and we need a new one. And they made a really good deal. But I told Leslie, no, I don't want to spend that money on it. It's $10,000. No, it's too much. She's like, okay. And then I started looking at the Dell side. I go, hey, they sell Sony and Canon and this and that. So I talked to the sales rep there, and I go, I want the Sony A9, and he goes, okay. I go, you need to FedEx it to him. He goes, I can do that, but I want a deal. He goes, what kind of deal? I said, you're offering 0% interest on the Exchange server. I'll buy the camera if you give me that. And he went, oh, okay. And then we bought something else for an APC UPS that we have, a big one. And so I configured it out, bought 4 lenses. Hasn't arrived. It'll probably arrive Tuesday. But I was going, oh man, I just spent as much on the server, it was like 10 grand on the camera with lenses. And I went, okay, that was kind of crazy. But I've been reading about the A9 and watching all the people I know, like Hugh Brownstone. I think I'm not sure, did you talk about the A9 too?
I haven't, no.
You haven't?
No.
Okay, so it's been some other folks. And the more I look at it, I go, you know, I want it. It's a camera I've been wanting for a while. I have the GH5, which is nice, but still the focus isn't 100% where I'd love it to be. It's okay. It's not bad. But I look at the Sonys and I go, they just look spot on, great on focus. And I'm just watching what everybody's shooting on them. Either they're doing magic after the fact or they look really good when you film. And Hugh and some others said, no, that's how they shoot. They shoot really nicely. And so I went for it. I went for the A9. It's the first time I'm going Sony other than for a bridge camera years ago. I went for the A9 plus 4 lenses, and I think I got one G Master lens, but the rest were, I guess, they're normal, kind of not bad lenses. I got the G Master 35mm, which everybody says is a really good camera. Focus can be odd sometimes, but it just shoots beautifully. It looks like a nice lens. And I also got an A6500, which I know isn't perfect, but also shoots really nicely. And I figured that could be a small camera. My wife wants to learn how to use it. I said, you know, what the heck? I have a feeling eventually I'd switch to Sony anyway, because Jeff has been forcing me to do that for about 4 years. and so what does he do when I tell him, you know, I'm going to buy the A9? He goes, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't. No, you don't want it. But I think he played reverse, you know, a little reverse psychology. He goes, once I tell him that he'll buy it, I know it.
But you know yourself, whenever you get your mind on a piece of equipment,
it's hard to get me off.
No matter what anybody says, you've got 1,000,001 excuses why you should buy it, and there's only about 5 why you shouldn't. But
well, it was sort of a Princess Bride moment, because you go, don't buy it. And I thought, he really means to buy it. He's convinced me. But no, wait, what if he's saying don't buy it for real? When I bought it, that is a dilemma.
It's just when I look at Curtis's YouTube channel, it's all the things I want to buy, but I stop watching sometimes because I think, oh no, I really do need that light. I really do need the handheld gimbal, because he does such a good job showing it and reviewing it, and it's like everything. It's always that one bit of equipment that will make you just that little bit better that you think it will. But it's good marketing, I think, from all of these places. It is,
but it's funny. I went for it. I splurged. It's all for taxes, so and we got a really good lease. I mean, basically it was like 2% lease, so I'm not complaining. And that wasn't bad. And so now I get to finally see how I feel as a Sony guy. That'll be interesting.
Well, if you don't like it, you know, I'll pay for the shipping. You can just ship it all over to me.
That's the real. He'll even come out to pick it up, I think, for that one.
I think I'll come and pick that up. I think that's it. So I'm waiting for the time where you can defer what you have to spend for taxes and give it to me. That would be good.
Yep. Well, before we continue, we want to do a little bit of commercial for our friend Curtis up here. Yes. Curtis has some really great tutorials on learning light and sound. And coincidentally, the website is called learnlightandsound.com. Definitely visit his site, sign up, take the classes. If you're new to video, audio, take it, or lighting. There's some really good training there. And believe me, even guys who've been around like us for a long time will always learn from stuff like him. So it's good. So learnlightandsound.com, Curtis Judd, he's right here with us, and good site.
Thank you.
Curtis, with a lot of the lighting, what are your main tips with them? Because the lighting's changed quite a bit in the last 5 years, whereas, say, 5 years ago, people had to spend quite a bit, but now they can get things in quite economical prices that nearly anybody can afford.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting evolution we've seen in the last 5 years. I think really 5 years ago, I would have said, yeah, there are LED lights out there, but the quality that you're getting out of them is really poor unless you spend a lot of money. Unless you get up into the, Arri had the L7C, I think, that they released about 5 years ago, but that was a $2,500 light, and it didn't put out that much light. It was really kind of roughly the equivalent of one of their 650 Fresnels, and so that just really, that was a lot of money to be spending. So obviously, if you're going to shoot with those, you probably needed at least 2 or 3 of them bare minimum. So I would actually back then would have advised people stick with tungsten lighting. Tungsten halogen lights put out great quality light. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's hot. Yeah, it uses a lot of electricity. Yeah, you have to be careful about how many units you plug into an outlet to make sure you don't trip circuits and things of that nature, but it's beautiful. You can shape it. You can make beautiful light with it. But today, I think we're finally seeing that those LED fixtures, those LED lighting instruments now, even sub $1,000, they're putting out some really good quality light. The COB 120 is a pretty good one now. Is it perfect? No. Is it as beautiful as tungsten? Not exactly. Does it have a little bit of a green cast? Yes, it does. But these are things that I think the issues are to an extent that they can be dealt with, and the convenience that comes with them is just tremendous. You can plug probably 4 or 5 of those COB 120s into a household circuit and not have to worry about tripping the circuit, which is a huge difference. It's also not going to change the temperature of Rick's studio there by 40 degrees when he's in there shooting. So that's a big difference too. You don't have to wait 20 minutes before you can break down your set because now the lights run so much cooler.
Well, you mentioned it had a fan, and you weren't kidding. You can't really hear it.
Yeah, and that's a big deal too, because there are a lot of LEDs that came out that had these massive fans in them, and suddenly it became an issue for audio. So Aputure's done a pretty nice job with that. It's not perfect, but from my point of view, for the price, which is about $650, I think, for each of those 120s.
It was about $1,000 for the D. It was, I think by the time we were done, I was going, oh, it's more than I thought. But it's a nice light. When you turn it on, it just, wow. You just have to be careful not to look at it too much straight in. It's very bright.
Yeah, definitely don't. But it's the world's changed quite a lot, and it's really great to see those options. Are you sure it's 1,000? Because I think the 120 is 650, and then it's the 300D that's 1,099.
Unless he sold me that. I don't think I got a 300D. This is a 120, right?
No, you got a 120.
I don't think the 300D was out yet.
It should be shipping now. It just came out within the last month or so.
He sold me that, and I thought I got a 120. That's entirely possible. I don't know, because it was 1,000 on the invoice. Ooh, that's expensive. Okay, not that $695 isn't, but 1,000 was even more than I thought. So I'll check because
you can tell if it's got 2 fans, it's a 300. If it's got 1, it's a 120.
Did you look?
And I think it's 300 on the side of it as well.
That's right. Yeah. This only has 1 fan. By the way, the CRI is amazing. 96 is pretty high.
It's pretty good. It does have, like I said, I think in the measurements, incidentally, this is another investment I made recently. Let's just pull this guy out. This is a Sekonic C700U. It is it's a spectrometer, so it's what I've been using in my more recent reviews to actually measure CRI, as well as the secondary color patches, which kind of tell a richer story than just CRI does. CRI's got a lot of issues with it, but it's a good starting point, and being able to measure additional color patches give you a kind of a better picture, especially regarding skin tones. You can get a sense for how well the light's going to work, and yeah, I think the Aputures do well. They're not perfect, but there's a lot of value there.
When you went down memory lane to go talk about the original LEDs, I think we got our very first LED light that was decent, and we spent a fortune on it. It was over $2,000 for the 2 little, remember light panels? We had the 2. They weren't that big. They were like half lights. I think they're called minis now or whatever, but they would cover maybe about 6, 7, 8 inches by about maybe 3 or 4. And 2 of those, one flood and one, what was the other one? It was the spotlight. They cost us about $2,400 back then. It was like not cheap, and it came with a couple of attachments, but that was about as clean an LED light as you could get back then. And I'm thinking about 14 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe 13, 14. It was a long time ago, and they were the #1, and supposedly they had the patents on all this, and everybody is still paying them royalties. So don't know.
Didn't realize that.
Yeah,
okay.
That's what
that could explain part of the reason why until recently, we were still seeing really high prices on most LEDs.
Yeah,
maybe.
And it could be because of that, because they went after some people that were trying to sell them, and they had to back off because they had all the patents. Interesting.
Yeah. Now, on the light panels, did they have the individual LED bulbs, or was it kind of the translucent panel where you didn't see any of the individual bulbs?
LED bulbs. You could see every one of them.
Oh, okay.
I want to say there were about 100 or 200, and you could see each one. You could put a filter over it, then you wouldn't really see them that well, but you could see each one individually. And supposedly they were all photo grade LEDs. I don't know. Back then, nobody really talked about CRI that much, so I'm not sure what that would have been. I'm sure it's pretty high. They were definitely wider. It was a wider light, probably more on the blue spectrum, but definitely white. It was pretty clean. They didn't give too much of a halo. I'd say it was a very clean light, but they didn't throw that far. So if you got 10 feet, you'd be lucky.
Yep, and that's the trick with panels. I will confess that I started with LED panels. The trick with panels is that a couple of things. Number one, it's nice because it's soft light, but the problem with them is that they either, depending on how they're designed, they're either spotlights or they're floodlights,
right.
But it's really difficult to shape them any other way. So even though a lot of them come with barn doors, the barn doors, all those do is attenuate the amount of light output.
Right.
They don't actually cut the light or anything like that. So that makes them more difficult to work with from my point of view.
Yep, that's true. But they were nice for a time for interviews. That's all we used them for, were interviews. They were pretty good for that, because you could also take it off, put it on a tabletop, and kind of light the person from, so you couldn't even see the light. It was just lighting them. And did a pretty good job. Let me ask you, how many times, Curtis, have you lit people with the glow of a large LED or LCD monitor?
Yeah, not usually intentionally.
No, but they wind up good, especially if you're shooting in an office building or something, and you figure out, where am I going to light with? And we got fluorescence overhead, and hey, that monitor is really lighting them pretty well.
They certainly make good accent lights, I'll say that.
They do.
But even what's helping us, I think, all with the lights is just even normal LED lights in normal housing and offices these days. It's just helped so much. Like some areas, whereas you'd have to have a lot of lighting, would have replaced the fluorescence with the LED lights. And I find at home that helps so much, where you don't have to put much lighting in there at all in a lot of places.
Indeed, and it's usually a lot more, especially in offices, you'll see that they will be daylight balanced, so at least you know what you're getting into. Generally, again, a lot of those household and even office bulbs that you see, either LED or fluorescent, if you actually look at the spectral output of those, they're still pretty messy, but they're usually a little bit more predictable in some ways, I find, than the fluorescent tubes. I'd rather work with an LED in most cases.
Now, Curtis, going to a different subject, audio. I recently ordered from Sweetwater a DPA single ear. I didn't bring it in. I think it's at home. Single ear mic. It's interesting. It was $700 or $650. That's what it was. $650. It's okay. Is it worth the price of that over, let's say, a Rode HS1, or even the one that Jeff and I have, which is the what brand is that?
HSE9.
HSE 09, the C09, right?
Yeah, that one.
Which is like $160 or $200.
Yeah,
and the Rode is $300, and this one is $650. I didn't see the sound quality as being worth that extra amount. They're nice, but they're not as full or rich as, I think the Rode is probably the best sounding of the three, even though it tends to have a certain specific sound. Have you played with any of those?
Yes. 1 second.
I just happen to have one here.
A company I've worked with a little bit lately, Voice Technologies. This is a Swiss company.
Yeah.
They make a variety of different headset microphones. This one is called the Duplex. I'm getting ready to do a review on this one in the next couple of weeks.
Good.
I would agree with you. I think they have their purpose. They're really nice for demonstrations. They're nice for on-stage use, especially because a lot of times when you have a presenter on stage, they aren't necessarily familiar with, they're an expert in whatever they're talking about, hopefully, but they generally are not necessarily an expert in how, microphone technique and things of that nature. And so in some respects, this is a better choice than a lavalier, where you won't run into as many of the issues with them, grabbing their top and moving around and things of that nature. So I think that's the main from my point of view, that's one of the big benefits here. This one actually sounds pretty decent. I have found that this one has an interesting thing that it does with the kind of the midtones and some of the, I would say in the 8 or 9,000 kilohertz range, things get a little bit too focused there. There's too much of that energy there. So I find you have to do a little bit of EQ to really kind of make them sound awesome. So that's my assessment so far.
Interesting. Yeah, and that's what I found with the DPA. I always thought DPA, they said it's like the Countryman, which is about the same price. And I have a Countryman E6, which I never really got to work very well on any gear I had. I had to really finagle with it. And it could be the compressors. I just didn't think it worked well with the compressor, especially the Aphex. I had all sorts of problems with it. And so the E6 is in its little case, and I haven't really looked at it much. The Rode I use quite a bit, but there's one thing I hate a lot about the Rode, with a passion, and that's the lousy metal armature it has around it that hangs over both ears that cuts your ears. I have had my ears literally cut from using it too much. There's nothing that makes it comfortable. And the same thing with DPA. I originally got a 2-ear one with two headset one, so it was the double. And I found I used it once on the show here about 3 weeks ago, and I had almost a cut on my right ear for about 3-4 days. It was really painful. I was going, ugh. And the ones are actually a little softer, and they don't seem to have the metal. The metal, it's actually plastic and it's covered. So I thought that was a little bit better. But the DPA I found just didn't seem to have the oomph. Or I should say it didn't have as much resonance as I was expecting, which I usually get out of the Rode HS1, but did not get out of that one. And I get it out of the one, the HS09 that we have. It's a different brand, and that one actually has very good resonance, and it's cheaper. And it just hangs over one ear, and it only comes about halfway. It doesn't quite make it all the way to the mouth, but it's a good mic.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think my sense is that a couple of things. Number one, I found that it seems like the Rode microphones tend to be voiced. You can see the sun just went down.
Yeah.
Sorry about the drastic change in lighting.
Left you.
But what I was going to say is it seems like Rode voices their microphones to have this kind of rich broadcast sound. It's very,
yes.
I think the market they're aiming for are people that want to be able to record something and not have to do a lot of post-processing, get a kind of a nice, rich, low-end, decent articulation, and so on and so forth. So I think they're really kind of aiming to make the microphone simple that way, at least for their kind of mid-range to lower-end mics, certainly. But I think even on their higher-end mics, you see that as well. But I think that a lot of the higher-end kits, especially the companies that are going to be, at least the ones from my perspective, that are working on the kind of the professional filmmaker, a lot of times what they're aiming for is a slightly different thing. I think their goal is typically going to be staying more true to life. And I think they accomplish that at varying levels of success, of course. But I think that's often kind of their design goal in terms of voicing the microphones. Just an observation. Don't know if it's really true. I guess that's kind of my sense.
And I guess I like that more, especially when we're doing shows. I like that broadcast sound. It has just a little bit more richness to it.
When you're filming me, you don't want me to be sounding like Barry White. That's the thing. That's
baby.
You wanted a nice natural sound, so I can see where the difference can be. But would you agree, though? I think with anything with microphones, no matter what the price is, you've really got to try it, because it depends on what you're doing with it and who's going to be speaking into it. I found some really expensive ones might not do as good a job, depending what you want. But it's like everything; you've got to just try them out.
Now, Curtis, one thing I've noticed when you do sometimes like the 3 or 4 mic reviews, I find it very fascinating because you're usually using the same preamp. And do you ever find that the preamps color everything to almost sound the same, no matter what mics you're using?
Yeah, well, there is that. I mean, I think, the preamp is a big part of the sound overall. And the only reason I do that on the reviews is just to keep one variable static, if you're going to be doing the comparison. And I think it also illustrates another point, is that when you are choosing a microphone, you need to keep in mind it's not just the microphone that's going to define your sound. It's also the preamplifier.
Right.
So it's a an important factor in the overall equation.
Now, are you using the sound devices a lot now? Because that really sounds good.
A couple. Well, of course, when I'm going to go out and do a paid job, it's my Sound Devices 633. But I also have in the Sound Devices MixPre 10T, which is their new mixer, it's an 8 XLR input.
Wow.
And it's kind of the next step up. So they came out earlier this year with the MixPre series, the 3 and the 6, and those were priced at, I think, $650 and $900.
Right.
And then the 10T is kind of the big brother to that, and that's priced at $1,800. So they're
is
kind
it a
of
lot bigger?
Yeah. Let me go. I'll grab it in just a second here. But I think the interesting thing about it is that they're kind of aiming for this middle market now. It's something that a professional sound mixer would use. But for example, in my case, it's a great mixer, but it's my backup mixer to the 633.
Oh,
so it fills an interesting niche.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm going to get that MixPre, I think 6. I just
6.
love the sound of it. And I have the G8. I watched your reviews on that several years ago, and I went, I'm going to get that when I did. And I like it, but I don't find it as easy to use. It's a little trickier to use than the sound devices. Just seems a whole lot easier to use.
Yeah, I think the F8 was definitely designed for. It was kind of Zoom's first shot at kind of trying to move into the professional market, and I think it's a fantastic mixer and recorder, and I still own one. I keep it in my kit because I love it as well. It has some interesting features that make it unique, especially there's a control surface you can add to it. The F, I think it's called the F control.
Yep.
Really a fantastic add-on, something that Sound Devices hasn't done on the MixPre series yet. Come on, guys. We'd love to see something like that. They have something like that for their 6 series, but not for the MixPre series. But yeah, you're right. If you really have to understand, you don't have to be like a super engineer, but you do need to understand the basics of sound mixing to really kind of make the most of that. It can be a little bit intimidating to get into.
Yeah, the interface isn't quite as clean as what you get, at least the buttons and everything. Took me a while when I first got it. Mind you, I didn't read the instructions. I just jumped in to say, let me see how far I can get with it.
Yeah.
How do I record?
We jump in first and then go back to the instructions.
So I couldn't figure it out, so I went back and I looked at your video and I went, that's easy. But it wasn't quite apparent. I was looking for like a simple record button. It wasn't quite where I thought it was. It was just, I had to play with it. And then I finally got it. I went, okay, it's a little different font. I've worked with other mixes, but they were older and they didn't have the sound that these do. And it does sound good because the F8 does sound actually really good. And the Sound Device, I think you've done a comparison of the two. The Sound Devices did sound better.
Yeah, I think there's a subtle difference there, especially with the 633 versus the MixPre and the F8 and F4. There's a little bit of additional warmth, and I think that there's... I guess there may be something that you could maybe characterize as a little bit smoother sounding. It seems to handle cases where someone modulates really quickly. It handles that a little bit better, it seems like. So, yeah, you get what you pay for. The question is okay, well, if I'm trying to get good audio and I'm doing passion projects, so I'm not getting paid for this, can I justify the cost of a Sound Devices 633, which is, $3,300 versus a Zoom F4, which is $650, and get 90-some% of the way there?
Sure.
You know that.
Sure.
So
it's how cool you look, though. It really comes down to that. We did a shoot one time with, we had a Canon, what was it called? It was... we had 2 of the XH-A1s, but then we also had, it's been so long, it had kind of like a V shape and had a really big, and it was it had replaceable lenses. It was a great camcorder. We bought that one, and we actually sold it because I couldn't find anybody who knew how to use it. They would just not use it well. And I went, no, it's too difficult, so we're not going to use it, but it was a great one. And another time we went out with smaller cameras, and they looked at us like, you guys are the pros? Yeah, but those cameras look really small. They're actually professional cameras. They are? Yeah, they're not as big as they used to be. And we were shooting with GH4s at the time, and they looked at us like, oh. And it was so funny. I go, we're not looking cool. Weird. So then once we set it up and kind of rigged it out, then they went, oh, wow, that's cool. Because then it had the mic, and it had this, and it had that, and it had the preamps. And now they were going, that's cool. And we had a really nice tripod. But when they just saw the camera come out, they're like, that's it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's that perception. Well, if you're a professional, wouldn't you have big cameras and big gear? So no matter what people think, there's a cool factor, which I never really considered, but to some clients, it makes it, they think, we're paying all this for that?
Yeah, I think it can actually matter on the first time, until you establish yourself as having credibility, and they realize, oh, okay, this guy or these guys or these people know how to do this, and what they're producing for us is very much worth what we're spending. But yeah, if you're trying to win the job and you show up with a Panasonic GH4 or 5 or whatever alone, it could be a little bit concerning for some potential clients.
That's it? Well, yeah, usually we shoot with our pro iPhones, but that's different. Yeah, never went that far.
I wouldn't do that.
No, I would never went that far. But and even if you shoot with a Sony, look at the Sony A9, the A7S, the A7S, the A7R Mark III. They're teeny. They're not large cameras, and you just kind of go, wow. And that's considered a professional camera. They're very small. They have beautiful output. The lenses cost more than the cameras, but still, it's considered a professional camera. But you have to tell them, no, this is a professional camera. Really, it looks small. So you always run into that. Yeah,
That's weird. Speaking of small, looks like you have a different microphone than the last time I talked to you. Is that a Neumann TLM 103?
You're very good. 102.
Yeah. 102, close.
102. Okay. I get the 103. 103 is actually bigger. This is their transformerless. I've had this for about, 4 or 5 years. When I first got it, I opened it, I go, $800, yay! And I looked at it and went, this is it? It's so small. But it's actually a really nice mic. It's become one of my favorites because it's consistent. It has a pretty boomy, bassy sound. For such a small mic, it's quite bassy. And it's not as bad as it used to be, where I think our rooms have gotten a lot better. It was very sensitive to your room noise. Really, it's gotten a lot better. It's just definitely gotten a lot better, and plus, I think we're just using better preamps now. But it was a small little mic, but I like it. It's not bad. You can overwhelm it real quickly, which is I don't know if this would be used by professional singers, for example. It's just sensitive.
Yeah, well, it is. It's meant to be a studio mic, so it's meant to be used under very careful, controlled situations. And I got to meet the guys. Actually, I went to the factory where they make those over in Hanover, Germany, or near Hanover, Germany. And those are great little mics. But you're right. I think you have to really know how to use them, and you need to, positioning is very important. Putting a good preamp behind it is important, of course, as well. But
I'm using a different. You probably can't tell right now. I'm using a different preamp. I'm using the Art Vocal Channel, which is about $600, a little less than $600. I actually like the sound a little better than the Aphex. Aphex is different. It's definitely a broadcast radio kind of mic. It pops you out. But it definitely colors your voice more. This one doesn't color as much, but has you can control every aspect of this compressor. There's so many knobs and buttons to control everything. We're still not totally 100% tuned on. I have one at home, which I use just as my favorite mic, sing into it, whatever. But this one is not bad. It's just a question of tuning a little bit better, but they're good. I was actually surprised. I talked to our Sweetwater guy, Marcos, and I said, okay, Marcos, I want something different. I'm tired of the same old preamps. I'm tired of Personas and Aphex. What do you got that's different? I want to play with buttons. And he sends me this one. I go, I like it. It's actually not bad. Took me... Oh, actually, this was the mic I was using when I was testing it. I felt so stupid. I spent 3 days trying to get it right, and I go, this preamp sucks. And then after 3 days, I realized my mic was backwards.
It's speaking to the wrong side.
and I just sat there going, 20 years of doing this, and my mic is backwards.
You were right in the sweet spot, buddy.
Oh, it was beautiful. It dampened all the sound, though. It was really great for that. Drove me crazy. I was ready to send the art back. Then I looked and I went, oh, gosh. Oh, I can't believe I just did that. And you know what? Because a lot of times, is the logo in front of you and behind you? It's hard to tell. Rode has the little dot.
They have a gold dot on the front.
Yeah, you know where you are always. But on some of the mics, you have to kind of guess. Sometimes they have the logo to you. Sometimes they have the logo to whoever's watching.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
There is a case. I think there's a case, and I'm a hypocrite saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's a case for not investing in too much gear and getting to know the gear that you use intimately, so that you can work quickly.
Yep, that's true. That's very true.
And I'm a hypocrite there. I realize that because I've got a ton of stuff here. But I do find, for example, for voiceover, and this is not ideal. I mean, this is a broadcast dynamic microphone, the RE20. It's not anything like the amazing large diaphragm condensers that people love and use, but I find myself just using it over and over again because I don't have to worry about. Yeah, there you go.
That's the 27.
That's the
27. Yeah. And I love this mic, and you're right. It has a nice sound to it. The 20 is a little less rich than this one, but I love the sound of the 20. I never got one. I think I just jumped into this one, but I have you used it a lot when you do your work?
The 27? No, I've never used it.
No, the 20. The 20.
The 20. I will use it every once in a while for a voiceover, for training videos when I'm doing that. There's a lot of times, especially men's voices, actually women's voices too, it really provides kind of a rich but not too overdone kind of sound to it that works really well for voiceovers, especially if you're in a corporate environment where you don't have a great space to record in. I don't have to worry about that as much. I can bring a couple sound blankets, but the microphone is just not going to pick up a lot of the room.
Now, do you find, depending, I guess, what preamp, that it has a nice kind of grittiness to it, too? It's just a little gritty, meaning it doesn't make you sound boring. It just kind of pops you a little bit more. It's a beautiful mic. It's actually incredible. Well, RE20, isn't that what, I think Rush Limbaugh uses that, the gold one? I think that's his mic.
Of course, his is gold.
It's gorgeous, totally gold plated. The whole I was wow.
I'm not a gold guy.
I don't know if he bought it or they gave it to him as a gift, but it's a pretty cool looking mic. And you can't tell when you're on camera because it looks like he's sitting like a foot from it. I go, there's no way he's a foot away. He's got to be close to it. But they're good mics. I've always liked the Electro Voice. You know which one I have? I don't know if I read it from you. I may have. It's the 320. That's a nice mic.
Right. Yeah. I found that one's a little bit brighter. It has different voicing to it. It does still have the rich low end. And actually, one thing I should say as well, I always use the high pass filter on this.
Do you? Okay.
It just is too much without the high pass filter on, unless your person is quite a bit away from it. But the 320 seems a little bit brighter to me, so the top end is a little bit more present.
Right.
But yeah, not a bad mic. Definitely a good choice.
They kind of geared towards singers and other things, so it's definitely probably has more features for a singer to pop out the highs, the mids a little bit more. It is brighter. The 27 is definitely brighter than the 20. I think it has something like 6 dB more of gain built into it, but it's not. It's a little different. I think the 20 has. It's got, I don't know, the bass is better on it. It just sounds nicer on the bassy part of it.
Yeah. Yep. That rich low end, that broadcast sound. If you like the broadcast sound, you can get it.
What do you think of the Heils?
Seems like a great option. I've never used one. My friend, I don't know if you've ever talked to Ray Ortega. I think he's got a Heil. Is it the PR40, which is kind of their,
which is a nice one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's in the same category here. Haven't used it personally, but seems like a great option. The problem is, life is short, and you don't have enough time for all the microphones.
No, you don't. But now this one, the one I'm holding right here, this is the Procaster from Rode. Now I've seen some reviews on the web. This one and the Heil PR40 are pretty close to being the same. I was about to buy the PR40, and I go, you know what? From the reviews and the samples I've seen, they're almost equal. And this one actually sounded a tad better, so I decided to stick with this one. But I did buy one of the cheaper Heils, which is one that's used a lot by musicians. I thought the build quality was. I was actually surprised. The build quality was really chintzy. I wasn't impressed. and that was like $150 microphone. It was a dynamic. It sounded okay, but I wouldn't say it was wow. I couldn't keep it on the stand. It would fall off the cheap holder that they gave you for. It just kept falling off. I went, this sucks. And I sent it back. I rarely send stuff back. That one went back. Well, Jeff knows I send cameras back, but I don't send mics back very often, and that one went back. I was surprised. The Heil is amazing, he himself, but I don't know. The quality just didn't seem to be where I thought it might be. And I like dynamics. Dynamics sometimes sound better than condensers in some cases, but yeah, it wasn't quite the same. Yeah. What's your favorite? Do you have a favorite mic?
Yeah, Jeff, do you have a favorite mic? You're asking Jeff, right?
No, I was asking you, but Jeff too.
Well, one of my favorite is that Procaster. I actually quite like that because it's a dynamic mic, and like you said before with the other one, it doesn't get a lot of the noise out and about, so you don't have to work so hard for it. But you do have to be right on top of it. But what I do like is the Sound Projects one, because what I don't like showing me microphone. So like here, I like it to be hidden. Whereas a dynamic one, you can't do that. You've got to have it in your face. But I like the Sound Project. Was it Sound Projects, Rick?
Sound Project C1.
Yeah, C1, because Rick put me onto that, and it's got, I think you said it had the Neumann sound from one of the really higher expensive ones.
Yeah.
It was only about $300, I think it was. At the
time. Friend from mine, Connor Quinn, he's a really good voiceover talent. He does something like 80 voices. And he said he uses that because it is exactly the same sound as a U87. And he has fooled many an engineer with. They all think it's a U87. These are guys who do this all the time. $250.
Wow. And that's what I'm using. I'm using the Sound Projects now anyway. So
and it looks cool. It looks like something that just came out of The Day the Earth Stood Still, the robot, Klaatu. It looks like that. It's just kind of a cool looking modern mic with the bass it has. But it sounds good.
Can I show it? Yeah, there we are.
Ah, there we are.
There it is.
Very nice.
I love that, yeah.
But for $250, you get a mic that really does sound like a U87. Impressive. You don't have to pay a fortune. I love watching singing reviews on YouTube. Most of the singers can't sing worth beans, but some of them are good. And I still can't get. Why would you put some of these people to help you sell your mic? I mean, my gosh, they're awful. But but anyway, there was one I was listening to, and they have these $200 mics, and then they go all the way up to $3,500, $4,000 Neumanns, and frankly, the about mid-range $400 mic sounds the best.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends. It depends. I think that it depends on what you're doing. There are some nuances, and the question is do those nuances matter to you? And I think that's, then there's a lot of subjectivity too. I mean, I think a lot of people like the kind of the rich broadcasty sound. Other people, as I find that especially amongst a lot of professional mixers, they just don't want the broadcasty sound. They want the Sheps,
right?
The sound that is just as faithful as possible.
Yep.
Speaking of favorite mics, this is probably my favorite right here. This is the Sennheiser MKH 8050.
8050.
It's for booming, so this is coming from a filmmaking perspective. It's a small diaphragm condenser. It's a supercardioid pickup pattern, puller pattern, and it is tiny, as you can see. So this is a lot easier to hold out on the end of a boom pole. And what I like about it is, obviously it's small size, but it does have it has its own distinct sound. It is somewhat colored, but it does have that rich sound. And you can move it away from your subject a little bit, or the talent a little bit, and still get a lot of rich low end. But it doesn't become super overwhelming if you're right up on top of it either. They've done a really nice job controlling that somehow. So this is probably my favorite right now. And that's in light of the fact that I have available to me Sheps CMC 641, which is probably the quintessential boom microphone for indoor dialogue for filmmaking. I have access to both of them, and often, depending on the person's voice, I find that I really like the Sennheiser in a lot of cases.
Now, how is that compared to the 416, the MKH 416?
Well, first of all, it's not a shotgun design, which is important. The shotgun design is not necessarily the best design for use indoors if you're working in a room that has a lot of reverberation.
Okay.
Because if you do, and you get off axis just a little bit, you can start to get this warbling kind of phasing sound, which is not ideal. So a lot of times you don't want the shotgun pattern indoors, especially when you're working in film, because if you're the sound guy in film, you don't want to be the one that says, hey, you know what, guys, sorry about that. We're going to have to do a retake. I didn't get a good take there.
Right.
So you don't want to take that risk. So that's the other difference, I think, is that this is their newer generation mic. The MKH 416 was designed back in the analog tape days.
60s, wasn't it?
The 416 was.
It was in the 60s, right?
Oh, I don't.
I think it was 60s or 70s.
It may have been. But it was definitely designed back in the tape days, and so it was voiced, I think, specifically for tape. And so I think the problem with that today is that while it still sounds very good, and I actually like the sound of the 416, it can sound a little bit more harsh than it originally did in the tape days on digital recorders. And so the newer generation ones here, they actually designed this to take the place of the MKH 50, which is a very commonly used mic, which again was also designed back in the analog days. And they voiced it a little bit different, mainly for dialogue recording, but also, of course, it has interchangeable capsules. You can actually unscrew this and put a different capsule on there in the 8000 series. But those are kind of the two main things. Also, what's unique about it is that this is an RF, what's it called again? The Rode NTG3 is also the same. It's a different design principle. It uses RF, the name is escaping me right now, but
I know what you're talking
it
about.
tends to do quite a bit better when you're in especially humid environments, which is important again in filmmaking when you're out in the rainforest or something like that. It will generally continue recording, whereas a lot of other condenser microphones will start to have trouble.
Interesting. Yeah, I've got the NTG3. I love the NTG3, but it's very, very, very bassy.
Yeah,
But
I think really the trick with that is it's meant to be used at a distance, so probably 18 inches or more. It definitely has a proximity effect. If you get right up on it, then you get the really, the proximity effect.
Well, it's really great because my normal voice sounds like this, so it's really just wonderful when you use it. So. It's fun.
Got a Mickey Mouse thing going?
Yeah. Yeah, real close to mini action now. But so you like that Sennheiser the best. My 416, one of them, we have two. One of them actually shorted. It just had some sort of short and didn't work for a while. We sent it in, and I never realized. I did not know that Sennheiser owns Neumann.
Yeah.
I just went, really? That's interesting. Because when you send it in, it goes, is this a Neumann or a Sennheiser? It's like, wait a minute. And then I read that they bought them back. I forgot when it was. It was a long time ago. But they've kept them very discreet.
They have, and they have. I think they've really continued the tradition of each of them. It's interesting. That's where I got to go visit the factory that they have just outside of Hanover. I think the town is called Wiedemark, and it was really, really interesting to go into the factory and see how they do those. In the manufacturing process, and then the quality assurance process afterwards is quite impressive as well. And they have the anechoic chambers where they test the microphones and they individually print out the frequency response for each one of them. If it doesn't fall within the specifications, then that one's actually rejected.
Interesting.
Really a neat experience.
They do a lot by hand, don't they?
They do. I was surprised at how much of that is actually done by hand. Or if it's not done by hand, the amount of it that is done, that's actually inspected by a person that actually sits down and looks very carefully at it and sees how making sure that it's fitting within all the tolerances.
So speaking of all these mics, which is your favorite battery pack, or not battery pack, but wireless lavs?
Well, so this is an interesting question because the reality is that I pretty much hate all wireless, but but you have to work with wireless if you're doing film. And I haven't used a lot of the higher end stuff, so my kit consists of 2 Rode Link wireless filmmaker kits, one Sennheiser G3 kit. I actually probably prefer the G3, the Sennheiser. However, it's really good to have both because they both work. They communicate differently. So the Sennheiser is an analog transmission. The Rode Link is a digital transition. They use different frequency ranges. It's good to have both of them, because there have been circumstances where I've wired somebody up and ready to go, and just run into there's some sort of interference, and I cannot, I have not been able to solve it, so I switch out to the other system and I'm good to go. So I think for me, I don't have a favorite, and I haven't used Electrosonics and things like that, the higher end stuff, or Zaxcom, so I don't have any experience with that firsthand. But my take on it is it's really good to have multiple options that work differently with you, so that you can deal with the challenges that will inevitably come. They'll always come.
Yeah, we do something like you. We've got Evolution G series, and they're great. I think we're on a second set of those throughout the years, and they've been very good. And then we also have the Shure P5s, which are easier, but depending on the camera, and this is really weird, it depends on the camera, they actually sound pretty good. On my GH4, they sounded like absolute trash. No matter what I did, they would always blow out the amp on the GH4. On the GH5, they sound great. Go figure.
Interesting. Yeah, I know that the GH series, the 4 and the 5, and maybe the 4 in particular, they have a really hot preamp. Like even the lowest input setting is pretty hot.
Yep.
And I know that the Sennheiser's, certainly has been designed to be able to kind of range pretty well. I'm not just as familiar with the Shure, so I don't know on their case. Maybe they have a pretty hot output signal as well.
I think they're hot too. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That could be just a rough combination.
But the GH5 sounds good. I was surprised. Let me see. I tried it the other day, and I went, wow, this sounds really good. So cameras are different, and I guess they really upped the preamp on the GH5 compared to what I never thought the GH4 had a very good preamp. It was noisy. It just wasn't good. I mean, when you're doing nothing, it was about halfway up. So your noise flow was, no matter what you did, it was about halfway. It's like, oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
Not quiet. I've had good luck with the Canon preamps on cameras. They tend to be pretty quiet. Haven't tried Sony yet, so it's going to be interesting to see.
Let's ask Jeff. Let's ask Jeff about preamps on Sonys. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, no, I love the Sony, but I don't actually have the Sony. That's the one I want to get, but as I said, I don't actually have any Sony cameras.
He's been wanting me to get a Sony for 4 years.
Yeah, that's right. I've been tossing up whether to get a GH5, because I've been taking your advice, Curtis, and trying to use the equipment I've got, and then I do analyze it, say, I really love that, but do I need it? Will it make a difference? No, I'll just learn to adapt what I've got at the moment. So for the past 2 years, I haven't bought any camera equipment, because I'm just saying I've got enough that I need. I've got a wireless mic. I've got an corded lavalier. I've got boom mics. I've got a number of different cameras and other microphones. So I can do what I can with it. But like you said, perfect what you do with what you've got is a big thing to do. I think is just because you just get too used to one camera. You switch it and then you start all over again, because no matter how good you are, there's all these different nuances in each camera that you do get.
Absolutely. You know what, Jeff, you are the winner of the Learn, Light, and Sound award for sticking with the same gear for a period of time. So congratulations. I actually honestly believe that there is too many of us switch out cameras and audio gear too quickly before we actually even get good at using what we have.
That's true. But that's currently, I think there weren't so many options in the old days.
True.
And now, I don't know about you, but I love retail therapy. So I just start going, I want that. Sure, I want that one too. And then, of course, afterwards I sell them and I go, that was a waste. It happens.
Well, I think the thing that's taken me this year, I've started to think about the price of things, where sometimes you just don't think about it. You just think what I want. But then you think, hey, what else could I buy with that?
That's true. Well, you know what Jeff's not telling you.
Start thinking about it.
Yeah, but Jeff's BSing you, because he's not telling you that he spent about 15 grand on audio music gear.
On music equipment. I haven't bought camera stuff, but then it all depends how much I can use it. That's the justification for me. If I can get something and use it every day at home, that's bigger justification.
He's got Korgs and Yamahas. He's got all sorts of nice stuff.
Okay.
Yes, well, I just bought a Korg Kronos, and then I've just updated my Yamaha keyboard to another one. So, waiting for the new one to come.
Where his money goes.
Well, you're not telling me we don't need to revoke that award, do we?
Well, for camera equipment, yes.
That's funny. Hey guys, we've been going over an hour. I guess we better cut it short. But it's going to be real dark by the time we're done where you are. So, Curtis, as always, it's an absolute pleasure to see you and talk with you. I was talking to Leslie. We're going to head over and see you sometime this winter. We're going to try to make a trip out to Salt Lake and just say hi.
Come on down. That'll be a great time.
I'll call you ahead of time to make sure you're not out of town or anything. But love to see you. If you're ever back in Thousand Oaks, give me a call because we're right down the hill from you.
Absolutely. You're in the town where my grandparents lived.
Are your grandparents here?
Camarillo.
Yeah, let me know next time you're out. But we're definitely going to try to make a point to go out to spend like an extended weekend and try to avoid all the crazy skiers. But actually, no, it's not the skiers, the other guys, the snowboarders. And we'll see how that goes. But I would definitely love to see you there. And again, for all you people who are interested in learning more about light and sound, go visit www.learnlightandsound.com. That is Curtis's site. He does a wonderful job on the training. So, Curtis, until next time, we'll see you real soon. Stay warm. It's getting cold out where you are. And
thanks a lot, guys. Great to talk to you.
And we'll see you soon. By the way, season's holidays, Merry Christmas, and hope you have a wonderful one there.
To you as well. Thanks,
and
guys.
Jeff, we'll see you next week.
Let's see you next week.
Have a good one, everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.